Here we go again. Hey everyone, 2023 is officially coming to an end. I can't believe we're going into 2024, and that means it's time for me to list my favorite movies of the year. Now, before we get into my top 10, I do want to list 10 quick, very quick, like super fucking quick, honorable mentions, some of which came very close to my top 10, so I want to give them a very quick shout out before we get into my top 10. So my top 10 honorable mentions are Scream 6, Nyad, No One Will Save You, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, The Haunted Mansion, The Holdovers, Poor Things, Wonka, Joyride, and Past Lives. All of those movies are great and so different and special in their own ways, and I recommend them all to you. And now it is time to get into my top 10 favorite movies of the year. We are going to start at the number 10 spot and work our way up to number 1. And in my number 10 spot, we have Bottoms. Now, this is the kind of LGBTQ representation I want to see in film. What I love most about Bottoms is that it's a hilarious teen comedy with LGBTQ representation without being preachy. These characters could be played by any gender and any person, and it doesn't really matter their orientation. This is just a teen comedy, an outrageous one, have you, that is fucking hilarious. A very fun story that does go over the top at times, but this movie not only knows it, but it owns it. This is the type of LGBTQ representation I want to see more of in movies, where these characters happen to be of the LGBTQ community, but their orientation is not necessarily a story point or focuses on that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I love the idea of normalizing these types of characters in movies who are who they are, and the movie is great regardless of that. In my number 9 spot, we have The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And oh my god, was this a major return to form for the Hunger Games series. I love the original films. Disclaimer, I did not read the books, but I loved the original films. However, I do feel like the latter 2 films of the Mockingjays really kind of went down in quality, and it really crescendoed at its highest point with Catching Fire. I feel like The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, say that 5 times fast, might be my second favorite of all the films. I love the story, I love the characters, and I thought it's a very rich telling of a villain origin story that gives the characters nuance, and you actually believe that this certain lead character becomes the despicable President Snow that we know from the original series. This movie really impressed me from start to finish. I thought it only enriched the world of Hunger Games and added more to it. And if this is the direction we're going to expand this franchise, I am all for it. In my number 8 spot, we have Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan attempts to do Aaron Sorkin, and I am here for it. Talk about an amazing movie that does an amazing job at depicting possibly the worst qualities of the human race and how we are ultimately our own demise. Not necessarily a happy movie to be walking out of, but an impeccably made, written, directed, acted film from start to finish. The cast is stacked. Considering it's back-to-back dialogue for 3 solid hours and that kept me engaged, enthralled, and captivated the entire time, really says a lot about Christopher Nolan's directing ability and writing ability. In my number 7 spot, we have Suzume, from the same director that did movies like Your Name and Weathering with You. I absolutely loved Suzume. I love the romance elements, but I love how epic this was. I argue that the director took this movie to more epic levels than he has in previous films that I've personally seen. These types of films are kind of filling the void that Studio Ghibli has ultimately left because we don't get as many Studio Ghibli films anymore. Suzume just swept me off my feet. The animation was stunning, the story was rich, engaging, epic, magical. Absolutely loved it. And in my number 6 spot, we have The Color Purple. And oh my god, is this one of the best musicals I have seen in recent years. You can tell the director and all the cast and crew really love this story, these characters, this material. It is told so richly. This is a vibrant, exciting, beautiful musical that does tackle some very dark, heartbreaking, horrific acts committed against some of these characters. This is a journey, but not necessarily a hard one to watch. Yes, there are hard moments to sit through, but this is a journey that is so rewarding by the end that it left me with tears of joy. Holy shit, we are in my top 5, and oh my god, was it hard to distinguish what was breaking into my top 5. But in my number 5 spot, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, this is how you end a fucking trilogy, and it's not very many trilogies I can think of that end on such a picture-perfect high note. Not only does this film bring a lot of the humor and charisma and energy of this series, but James Gunn really went there with the emotional stakes and really taking our characters to dark places and having the balls to go there, and he fucking goes there. This is how you end a saga. This is how you end a trilogy with these beloved characters that have so much love for each other, and you feel that dynamic, and you feel this as a last hurrah. This is one of the best MCU films ever, and undoubtedly a perfect ending to this trilogy. And in my number 4 spot, we have Wish. And oh my god, has the hate for this movie been so fucking loud, like 2 megaphones in my ear. I don't understand it, and fuck that, because this movie was so delightful and charming. Yes, this movie was made to pay homage to 100 years of animation at Disney, and I felt that. I had a smile on my face the entire fucking time. It reminded me of old school Disney animated fairy tales, like the ones like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella. This movie doesn't break any glass ceilings. It doesn't necessarily bring anything brand spanking new to the table. So yes, it can feel simple and at times conventional, but it's classic. It has a classic Disney fairy tale energy to it that made me just fall in love. It brought out my inner child, and I recognize that it's far from being the best Disney film, but it made me feel warm, and it made me feel excited to see what I was watching. The characters were lovable, the music was catchy, the animation was stunning. It was a beautiful love letter to 100 years of Disney fairy tale animated magic, which is exactly what it set out to do. And in my number 3 spot, we have Hey Barbie! Yes, Barbie is the biggest movie of the year, not just in terms of box office, but I argue like fanfare movement. It's been years since I feel like a movie felt like this much of an event, and I felt that sense of community. I dressed in pink. I saw it multiple times. This movie was hilarious and immaculately constructed with an impeccable production design. Greta Gerwig really excelled and leveled up as a director. But man, did this movie pack the emotional punches, and I cried at all of those scenes that we all think about. We are witnessing cinematic history. Movies and classics like The Princess Bride, or in modern day times like Mean Girls or whatnot. Movies that span generations, that people know, that people talk about, and people will go back and rewatch. What I loved most about Barbie was the movement, and how it really brought so many people together in ways that I haven't seen in a while from movies in theaters, especially coming out of the pandemic. The movie gets better and better the more I watch it, but just to feel that Barbie pink energy that I feel like we all kind of subconsciously share for those of us that loved it, that feeling alone is priceless. And in my number 2 spot, we have Theater Camp. This movie captured my heart in a very special way, and it tragically I don't think has been seen by a lot of people. I think you can catch it on Hulu right now, but my god, this was the best comedy, in my opinion, of the year. This movie is wall-to-wall hysterical, at least to me. I know comedy is subjective, but my inner theater kid was grinning from start to finish, telling a story in like a documentary style filming of these camp counselors and kids at a summer camp, a musical theater summer camp. This movie is also grounded, though, in that it is calling out stereotypes in a way that it is aware, and it's in on the joke. It never felt hammy or forced. It felt kind of real, but in a hilarious way. And yes, this movie is very small in scale, but it is like a gem of a film. I couldn't believe how much I was in love with it, and it just escalates and ends on such a fucking high. Like, holy hell, this movie had no right to be as charming, adorable, hilarious, and amazing as it is. And finally, my number 1 spot, my personal favorite movie of 2023 was The Little Mermaid. And oh my god, did this movie impress me and really exceed so many expectations, because I recognize that live action adaptations from Disney are very dicey and very mixed, and not very many of them are that great. But Little Mermaid, I argue, is one of the very few that enriches the material and brings a lot of newness to this story in ways that don't take away what we love, but add more to this timeless tale. It's not a picture-perfect live-action adaptation, and I'm not saying it's better than the original, but what new things it brought to this movie did make some characters and storylines better for me. I argue Halle Bailey's performance adds more nuance to the role of Ariel, to where she is my favorite version of Ariel. I fucking said it. I have no shame. She was beautiful. This movie gets better and better with each viewing for me. It really filled me with so much love and magic and nostalgia and appreciation for giving me something fresh within this story, especially within Halle Bailey's performance. And there are my top 10 favorite movies of 2023, everyone. Now, this was just my list personally. These were the ones that resonated with me most. There are lots of movies out there, and I'm sure that you have different movies on your list, and that's perfectly fine. I'd love to hear some of your favorites down below, so feel free to list them. But now 2023 is coming to an end, so I'm ready for 2024. Thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Ryan Bamey, signing off. Bye, everyone.